Hey, so you're probably here because you're looking to make a really nice gemstone inside a blender for your project, make something that's sparkly and looks really nice. And for me personally, I've been doing a bit of an obsessive deep dive into gemology and faceting because it's really interesting how we cut stones and some of the machines behind it. And I was like this close to getting one of those machines until I saw that price tag, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna stick to digital for this one, because not only do like these facetors have all this documentation to create these types of gemstones, there's a wide variety that we can pull from. So instead of just going into Blender and like chop a cylinder in half and like that's this part and that's that part and make something that looks gem shaped, let's actually look at some of the faceting documentation behind making gemstones, and then we take that into Blender so we can actually model accurately some of these objects, probably as close as you're going to get before you want to pay for some sort of CAD software to actually like get all the like refractive elements working correctly in that. Let's use Blender because it's free and it's fun and you're a smart person that likes doing it. And also we're going to have a look at a bit of a shader to play with refractance and like how we can use that to create some of that sparkle and just a nice little lighting setup to like really make that gem pop. So enough talking, let's get straight into it. Alright, let's get straight into Blender. So I've got a fresh scene open and I'm just going to delete everything. So hitting A and delete. If I don't say what's happening, I will keep this little icon down here so you can follow along, but I will try and explain what's going on as I'm building this object. And we need to create our gem blank. So this is like the outside shell of what we're going to have. But I think there's a little bit of theory that we should touch on first, and that's what a faceting machine looks like, because then we can start understanding like some of the angles we're dealing with. So I've just found this image on the internet. This is probably a little bit of a high-end machine, and this one scared the hell out of me with the price. But as you can see, there's two angles that we're really dealing with. We have this tilting one, so the up down, and then we have the rotation. So there's like a little gear at the front, and that's usually indexed to 96, and that number is going to be apparent later. We don't really need to understand, we just need to understand that we're sort of shaping a cylinder. This has a lot of numbers on it. How does a faceter understand what's going on here? This is where they have faceting diagrams. I've just found this one on Wikipedia, and this is considered like a brilliant cut diamond from my research because there's lots of triangles instead of rectangles. We don't need to understand that. This is giving us a really nice bit of information on how we can model our gemstone, because you could take an image of this and bring it in the model over the top, but I think it's more important that we understand what these numbers are so we can actually model this. Now it does have a little bit of extra stuff down here. This is more for that faster, because this machine, like this front dial, does have that 96 index. It's not 360. So what they're doing is like, oh, this one's 45 degrees, and then they rotate by certain numbers up to 96. So that's what those numbers are for. We don't really need to look at those. We want to sort of look at the ones up here, because that's going to give us all the information that we need. So a couple of things first, like we do have our diamond shape. There's a bit of terminology, like the bottom half of a diamond, it's called a pavilion. You have that top part of the diamond, that is the crown, and you have the table, and then you have like a few other diamonds, but it's all based around like the longest part or like a certain diameter. But it's not like millimeters, we're dealing with ratios. So it's like the length of the diamond needs to be a unit of 1, and then we break it down from there. And another thing too is because we do have these 16, well, if you were to go around and count, there's 16 steps, but they also say 16 girdles. So it's just a different terminology. But with all that said, we can start modeling R1. So typically when I start modeling some sort of gemstone or shape that I need to have a little bit more control and try and type numbers in instead of just being like, oh, it's about this high doing the farmer's measurement. I'm just going to hit Shift A and I want to select the circle here. And this is going to generate a mesh circle. It's just, yeah, it's just a round part, but I want to come down here. I'm going to put that 16 in there. So if I, not 26, 16. And if we come from the top view and bring this across, we're starting to get that shape already. So we're not just like modeling to an image, we're starting to put in those numbers. So another thing too is this is a radius. So this is actually 2 units wide. And because we're dealing with ratios, and we're probably going to just treat, because Blender's in meters right now, or wherever you are, it's in a certain unit, but we're going to treat it like units. So we want 1 unit. So I'm going to make this 0.5. So the diameter is 1. So this is going to be our full length. So I'm just going to hit enter. and that is the base of our gemstone. So the first thing I want to extrude is the pavilion side. So that's telling me that it is this number here, so pavilion width, so we're just looking at that one, 4.66. So it's not like a perfect 45-degree angle. It's probably because of this girdle. There's like a little tiny bit there, but because it's giving us a direct number, we can come in here, we hit tab, I can hit E or extrude and then Z, so I'm extruding on the Z axis, and I can go 0.466 and it's gone up. So if I hit negative, it should drop it down below. So now I have this, so now I want to bring it in. So if I go scale and then 0, it's going to bring it all to the center. So that's that bottom pavilion done. I'm not going to merge it yet, so you're probably thinking that'll be the next stage, but when I need to create some loop cuts as we go along, so I want to merge it later because I wouldn't be able to just go Control L or the loop cut tools there. It won't work like that. Like if I just merge it at the center and do my loop cut, it's not going to work the way I want. So I'm just going to keep that as is and just merge everything when I'm finished doing all the facets. So now I've got the bottom half, I want to do the top half. So if we bring that diagram back again, we've got the crown, which if we look here is 2.8, and we've probably got like a perfect girdle, so we might do a bevel later, but I'm just going to put that number in. So if I go shift and click, or sorry, alt and click, that's going to select that top ring, E, Z, and then I want to put that 0.218, yep, cool. And then the table itself is 0.516. So this is where having a thing at unit 1. So when we scale, if we look at the number up here in the top corner, you can see it's that point number. So I can just go 0.516 and that is correct. And then if I line that up and bring this one in, we're starting to get that shape. And the table should be correct. But this is like our basic gem. Just to fill that hole up the top, I can hit F, but we're going to do some faceting, so that might get a little bit janky up the top. So we'll just leave it like that. But there's our basic gem shape. So we've got our base stone, but we need to start adding some of these triangles. So how do we go about doing that? So there's a few different tools, and I just want to show a few different ways. And this is where we start getting into that modeling aspect, because this isn't a CAD piece of software. But because we have diagrams and we can sort of see how it's going, we can make some judgments and calls. All right, so let's cut the first set of facets. And really, I think this does about 90% of the work. Sometimes it does get a little bit more fiddly, especially if you start collapsing the geometry. But this one, what we're going to be doing is bringing this 16 down to 8. So if we have a look over here, we're making this shape underneath. So for me, what I can see is this is almost about halfway. And I'm just going to like start with just creating the geometry, and then I might tweak it a little bit later. But for this one, I'm going to hit Control R, so I'm creating a loop cut. I'm going to apply it, but instead of going left click again, I'm going to right click so it snaps back down to 0. Next, I want to select these edge rings, so I'm just going to select one, come up to the select menu, and I want to come to loops and ring. I'm going to select everything around there, but I need to come back to this menu because I'm going to do checker deselect. So now I've got these 8 points there, and this is where the magic happens. If I go Control B or use the Bevel tool, I can expand that out and create that shape almost, but we've got some lines there. And if we were to have a look at the vertices themselves, just grab one, there's a lot of overlapping stuff. So now I want to start cleaning up this area here. So it's probably easier just to come into like the side view, and this little button up here, this will toggle the X-ray so I can select through the object. It's not going to select half the object, but what I want to do is hit the M key or merge. So I'm going to merge everything by distance. You don't need to set a crazy number. You just want enough so they all join together. And now if I hit enter, as you can see, all of them are joined. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go back to that side profile. I'm going to hit 2 on the keyboard, and then select everything and hit X, and I want to dissolve those edges. So if we'll get our X-ray view, and then we have a look at the bottom, the other bottom, and then we bring that object, we can see we've got that star pattern, and then we can start tweaking it. So it's like if I bring that X-ray view back, because these are a little bit down, I'm just going to select these, double tap G, and then it'll allow me to slide the geometry along these. So it was a little bit further down. If I go back to that bottom view, that's probably a little bit closer. So this is where that artistic component comes in, because these are very set numbers when you're doing it, but they're also minute degrees as well. And like if we were to just tab out there, we can see those facets happening at the base there. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think I'm going to move on to the crown next. All right, so we're going to focus on the crown, but it's a little bit different to the underneath because we've got 1, 2, but on the top we've got 1, 2, 3 elements. So I think with this one, we can use the vertices in a similar way we did that edge bevel. So what I'm going to do is just make sure I'm in edit mode. I'm going to hit Control R and left click to put that loop cut in, but right click so it's in the center. We'll adjust the height in a little bit later. But what I want to do is I'm just going to go into vertex mode. So if you hit 1 on the keyboard, it should bump over to here. And then what I'm going to do is a checkered deselect. So come into select, checkered deselect, and just making sure that it's lined up with the ones down below. Because if you look at our diagram over here, you can see the kites are lined up with the kites underneath. So I'm just going to come back into here. And then if I go Control B, nothing's happening. Like if you use the bevel tool too, you hit the V key and that's going to give you control over the vertex bevel. So I'm just going to set up like that. We're obviously going to have some overlapping vertices, so we might clean them up first. So what I'm going to do is go back into X-ray mode side, and I'm going to select all these and just go M, merge by distance. Yep, that's good enough. But as you can see, there's no way a flat disc is going to cut that angle there. So what we can do is just grab those and go G, Z, and we can bring them up until that area is flat. So we're just looking at that shape there, and then that's given us that sort of undercut and the kite shape, and we've got a little bit of stuff up here to deal with. But really what we can do is do another checkered deselect on that. So if I hit 3 on the keyboard, I'm just going to select that top face. If you do see like these dots around the area and you want to select the face, you can turn off X-ray mode. But what I'm going to do is go back into vertex mode, see if it does the right thing. I'm going to go checkered deselect. So it's picked the wrong ones. I need to pick these ones. So how do we get the checkered deselect to select what we want? So I'm just going to select that top edge so everything is selected. And then we want to hold shift and deselect and select the one that we want to deselect. That's a lot of tongue twisting, but we want that one highlighted because that's going to be the starting point on how it deselects everything. So if we come back up here, checkered deselect, it's got all these bits of geometry here. So what I want to do is I'm just going to dissolve the vertices. It might do something crazy. If it does, I'll fix it up in a bit, but I'm just going to dissolve vertices. Yeah, it did the crazy thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select that top, and I'm just going to delete it for now, and then I'll fill it in again later. So just going by the edge, we'll select the edge, go to vertice, make sure that's selected, checkered deselect, select all those edges, X, dissolve vertices. We've got those 8 promenades, and then if we hold, go back into edge mode, shift select the edge, or alt select the edge, and then we hit F. Look at that, we have a nice brilliant cut shape. So other things I'll be looking at, because we did do that thing and like we need those flat edges, there might not be flat edges down here, so we can come down and tweak this edge here. But what I want to do just before I continue on is I'm just going to merge everything. So every point on this gem is one vertice. So just hitting M, merge by distance, that's all done. So now I can select that point here and move it around like that. And if I need to do some adjustments to bring that so it's a nice straight edge along there, I can do that. And the last element that I haven't put on this stone here is the girdle. So that's the bit that wraps around the edge. So what I can do is go control. Sometimes it will let me do it, sometimes it won't. So if you hold control, you can go around the gem and select it like that, and then hit Control B. And because it's a nice line, it's going to try and spread out the geometry. So now I have a really nice faceted stone, but it's using the measurements of the brilliant cut. So I'm pretty happy with the shape of that stone, and it does follow that diagram pretty closely. So really it's going to work for my needs, but you're probably thinking, why would you go through all the effort to go through one of those documents and just like, I could just grab a cylinder and create a gem shaped thing. And really it comes down to understanding faceting, because is really interesting, but it's been going on for centuries, and there's a lot of different cuts out there. Like you've got a round cut that we just did then, there's oval cuts, there's like pear-shaped cuts, there's cushion cuts, and there's different types. Like that was a brilliant stone, so that's more for diamonds to make them more sparkly. But there's also something called a step cut, which is making colorful stones more colorful because it holds on to light. And you really don't need to understand like the mechanics of like illuminance and how light passes through gems, but understanding why they cut stones the way they did, you can bring that into your work. And also there's a whole bunch of those documents out there that you can go and reference, so you don't need to think about like what are the angles of the gems. You can just go find the ratios and then model your gem around that. So I think that's really important to hit. But now we're at the point where I think we can do a really nice material for this one. So let's get straight back into it. So first things we're going to do is jump straight into the shading tab, and I've got my computer set up for cycles. So I just got a bit of a beefier computer, but you could probably play with this with Eevee. But what we're going to do is set up a basic natural light. So I'm just going to create a softbox. So what I'm going to do, come up to here, I'm just going to create an area light, bring it up, and I usually like disc, so it's not like a big harsh square line through it, but we've got like a round thing, and I'm pretty happy with that. We could make it a little bit softer and bring up the brightness, but we want to give this a material. So I've got a basic one set up here. I'm just going to call this diamond, because we're going to focus on the reflectives of a diamond, but they're all different refraction stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a basic glass material to start the process. So if we search glass, we got the glass BDSF, and then I bring that to the surface, we are starting to get, we can see how like diamonds refract and do all that pretty stuff. But we need to change this IOR value. And when it comes to like the reflectors, we're looking at the reflective index. So this number correlates with the IOR. So I've just done some quick research, quick Googling, and I found out it's 2.42 for diamonds. So that's specifically why. And every gemstone's got a different version of that. So if you ever look at the mechanics of like designing the light passing through, that number is very important. So we're going to put 2.42. If we chuck that in and have a look, that's starting to get that more brilliance look from our diamond itself. We probably want to keep it like super smooth. We don't want any blur, but it's also very flat. Like with like as you look at gemstones and that, they have little flecks of color depending. And what we can do is create a shader that sort of bends that IOR value, so we separate the RGBs. So you've probably seen this on YouTube a few times, but what we can do, I'm just going to turn on snapping so I've got a little bit more control. I'm just going to create 3 of these, so Shift D, so I've got 3 like that. And then I'm going to create add shaders, so we go add, and then another one, so Shift D, bring another one. And what I want to do is just so all the shaders are added together. So we've got that one, got that one, and then we got that one. So it's probably a bit bright, but we're adding 3 whites together. And if you know anything about color on the computer, we have RGB. So it's probably easy if we just jump over here. We've got our red value, so we take away the greens and the blues. We got our green value, so we take away the reds and the blue. And then if we go to the last one, we want to take away the green and the red. And we're starting to get that white color again. But as you can see, it's starting to frazzle because it's separating all the colors and how light is coming in. So what we need to do now is we're going to create a math. We're going to look for that one specifically because that is got our add and take away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a value here, and we're going to go Shift D, and then we're going to subtract a value here, which will come apparent because what I'm going to do is just select everything and put it into a group, because it gives us this nice neat little node. And if we back out, we've got everything contained here. So going back into this node group, you can click the, well, probably be easy if I zoom in, click this little thing to go back into it. But what we're going to do is we're going to, we'll play with color a bit later, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have our IOR value. I'm going to connect it one here, and then I'm going to connect one here. And then we're going to have a secondary value. So I'm just going to drag that in and then drag that one in as well. So it's looking a little bit trippy because we're actually bending the colors in that sort of refractive state. We're not like just moving colors around. So if we click over here now, because we've done a really nice thing, we have a little bit of control over our shader. So what I'm going to do is if I set that to 0, it's going to be our white. But if I start scrubbing this along, just give a little time, so you start seeing it bending out. And then if we start moving around, you'll start seeing like the color spectrums bouncing and playing with the light. So that's how we're injecting a bit of color into our gemstone, so it's not just like a flat white thing and a little bit boring. So that shader works if we want a white gem or a clear gem, but say we want to start adding some color into here, and that's where I think we can add a color component. So probably going to be a little bit cheeky. I'm just going to drag this one and put it over here. If you want to start editing some of these, so you want the color up the top, you can just click this little arrow here, and then you can just drag the value up to the top. So we've got that set up. All right, so now that we've got our color, I don't need that connection anymore, but what I'm going to do is create a separate color. So if we type in separate, there it is. So we want this one. So we've got our red, green, and blue channel, but these are individual lanes, so they don't actually have the color. This is just like a black and white map. So what we need to do is remap them back into colors and do that. So we can do something like combine color. And then what we need to do is create one for each. So this is just going to expand out a little bit more. So I'm just going to bring this down and go Shift D. So there's one here, bring these down. Just try and keep it neat so it's easy to follow along if you need to come back in here. But yeah, that should be fine. And then what we need to do is we go the red to the red. These numbers are 0, and it's going to start behaving weird because colors are weird until you have all of them back together. So the green goes to the green, and then we can plug the green into the color, and then we're going to plug the blue into the blue, and then the color into the color. And then if we've got that right, we've got our color here, and then we can move it around to create our brilliance of the gem, and then we can also control the light darkness in that. So we have the color itself, and if we want to make it a white gem again, we can bring that back up, and there we have it. So this is just giving us a bit of color control, but we also have those flecks of color there as well. So that's the basics of our shader right there. And if I jump back out one level, it's nice and neat. And as you can see, our menu is over here, so we can have a little bit more control of our color. But why would you do something like this? It gives us a lot more room to experiment. One thing I really enjoy seeing is sort of like bi-colored gems. So I could set up like a basic gradient texture. I have Node Wrangler set up, so Control T is going to set up our mapping. And then I'll probably just jump into here so I can see the colors. But also I want to add a color ramp as well. So color ramp, there we go. Chuck that in between there, and then I can say I want to go between this color and maybe a nice blue like that. And then we can adjust where it is so we can have like that split. If it's a little bit too weak, we can throw, we type in math, and then we can use a power node, so we chuck that one on. So with that active, we can use that to like squish the number to like make it a hard line or something around there, and then we can shift it across so we have like a nice bi-colored gem. If we jump back, we can see how that's been split, and we can see how it's playing, so we can have a little bit more of a muck around there. So I think everything's set up so we can start set dressing this and making this look really nice. But with any sort of gemstone, it's all about the light and getting light into it to make it look really nice. So what I'm going to do is just set up a HDRI, so we've got all this like world lighting happening. We don't have this flat gray that's making our object look a little bit basic. So usually what I do is, if I've like HDRI Haven, they've got a whole bunch of rectangular or 360 images. So I just bring it in like that, but then if I go Control A and type in environment texture, I can bring that in, and then all I have to do is select that drop down to add that. So this one I haven't been able to convert into an environment map, but it's just a nice way to quickly bring it in. All right, so we're at the stage now where we're going to light this, and I just pulled in a HDRI Haven light map, so you can sort of get a sense of like how these gemstones are going to play around. But this looks really nice, but we're not having some of those nice shining areas. We're not having dark, deep areas. So there's a little bit when it comes to photography and gemstones and jewelry and all that. So I just wanted to show you a few techniques to make this really shine so you get a really nice render out the top. And I think the first thing is having a really nice softbox. So I'm just going to remove the environment map. So just deselect it there. So I'm back in grey land. I'm going to set that back down to 1. So we've got a flat area. And the first thing, I'm just going to go Shift A and I'm just going to create that area light again. But this time I want to make it quite large. Something like that. It looks a little bit flat, but this is where we don't want too much light spill going out every which way. We want to sort of direct it at the gemstone itself. So what I want to do is bring that spread down. So as you can see, you can start seeing how the light is reacting. It's not just all popping at once, and we can sort of bring up the power as well. So usually when they're this size, I try and make them a little bit brighter. Ooh, that's looking pretty good already. But we need some dark spots in this, and because we're dealing with cycles, we want some sort of gobo that goes over the top. So we block areas of light, and then we have areas of light too. So a cheeky way of doing this is, I'm probably just going to do this in edit mode. So I'm just going to go layout, just so we're just dealing with geometry. We're going to do mesh, we're going to do grid. We'll make this not 550 by 50, and we'll scale this up. GZ, we'll bring it up close to the light. So we're getting all these sort of like light leaks coming down. Go into edit mode, everything's selected. I'm probably going to go into face mode. So we can hit 3 on the keyboard. And I want to go selection, random deselect. There we go, select random. So if we have everything deselect, select random, and then we can scale this number up here. And it's going to create a lot of holes. So what I'm going to do is just I'm going to delete faces, and yeah, it's sort of like letting stuff through. We can throw a subdivision on that to make it a little bit more interesting. So sub in the, there we go. If we tab out, we've got this sort of like weird checker shape. But if we were to jump back into our shading and have a look at the gemstone underneath, we're starting to get some of those lights as well. So I might scale that up so it's not like everywhere's getting it, but we do get those dark areas if we turn the grid off, turn the grid on. So we sort of controlling the light so we can see the deepest colors as well as the lightest colors as well. So I'm just going to have a bit of a play with this map. So it could be a lot larger. So I've got like a nice hole, and just make sure it's just over the top of the stone. So different elements are coming through. We can also make the background black as well. But that's a really nice render there, I reckon. So it's just some techniques to have it, and like you can dress this as much as you want. I'm probably going to dress this one to look good for the thumbnail, but really that is a really nice process to show off the gemstone you made. So I do hope you enjoyed this one. It's just a different look at creating gemstones inside of Blender, and people are probably looking for it. So if you think it will help someone else out, definitely give it that thumbs up. It does tell the algorithm to point it to other people, and really that sort of idea of blending the physical with a lot of history behind it, all that faceting knowledge, and bringing it into these modeling suite. That's usually what my day-to-day is in a plethora of different areas. So this is the type of stuff that makes me really happy, when it's like being able to create something that looks very special. So if you do have any comments or queries, please feel free to leave them down below in the comments. I do try and go down there and explain things, and really this is just the first point of call. You could start researching all the different gem cuts, finding all those diagrams, and start modeling a whole bunch of different gems. And I will put this package up on my Gumroad so you're able to download it, have a look at the shader as well, and being able to extract it and use it in your own projects as well. So in the end, I do hope you enjoyed this one. I do have a bunch of Blender content on this channel, really focusing in on being able to create some really nice stuff. So if you're interested in that and want to go see it, I look forward to seeing you next time.